Oh my god, the battle's breaking out. Okay, kids, let's talk about initiative, surprise, and determining who goes first in melee. We're going to talk more about our house rules here at the Rise of Aya's campaign. So here's the situation, right? Let's get these sounds out of the way in the background before you do your head in. You're sitting there at the bar table. You're in the end of the welcome winch, and you and your party are hanging out, ordering beer, talking about what to do, whatever's going on. And these baddies burst in the front door. The DM says, okay, the sergeant of the group bursts in the door, followed by a caster, and there's a guy with a short sword and a crossbow, and they go, there they are, get them. Boom. This is where you have the infamous situation in all D&D campaigns where they say, the DM says, roll for initiative, right? That phrase has been around forever. So what do you do in my game? And let's talk more about what we do in my game, and you can tell me whether you like that rule or not, because here's how I do it. It's a little bit more streamlined than the original rules in AD&D, and the reason why it is that way is to promote the fun factor. There's two major concepts to think about. One of them, and we'll use the board here for a few minutes before we get the marker board up, is this is what I call a group initiative situation. It's not a surprise situation. You're in a public space. I can see you. You can see me, even if it's night. This group did not try to sneak into the bar quietly and then jump you all of a sudden. They're just kicking the front door. They're yelling your name out. You can see them. They can see you. We need to determine who gets to go first. And in D&D, it's a you go, I go kind of situation. So the way I handle that is really quite simple. Is we roll 3d6 for each side, and the highest number wins. Now, in the player's handbook, let's just say that we use these. We'll use these blue dice here for bad guys, and we use these beautiful black dice for good guys, right? If you look at the player's handbook, there is something for your dexterity called reaction attacking adjustment. This is for your individual initiative roll. Now, the way initiative works in the original version of AD&D, you only roll one six-sided die. So as you can tell, let's take a look at our dwarf warrior here, Orsta Ulriksson, right? He's got a dexterity of 17. His reaction attacking adjustment right here is +2. That's a tremendous amount. If you were only rolling 1d6, and to say it was a fight, crossbow girl versus him, over here on the side, right? These two are fighting. He rolls a d6 and adds a 2. That's a 6. She rolls a d6 and she gets a 2 and no bonus because she's an NPC, and he's going to win initiative every single time. Seems kind of fair, right? Because he has an incredible amount of dexterity. So there's nothing wrong with that. But what about the group versus group situation? Do we want to get bogged down with the, okay, what's your reaction attacking adjustment? What's yours? Let's roll 3d6 for you, 3d6 for you, 3d6, or 1d6 for you, 1d6, 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 and make a huge list that ends up being like Divinity Original Sin, where the order of attack is first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth. I've lost track. And I've already lost track of who's going to go in what order. It bogs everything down. So when the initial encounter happens, you do what I call a group initiative, and let the group that wins first take all their moves, because the group has, by an equal chance, there's no bonuses to these die roll, won the reaction. They are better as a group. They're coordinated as a group. They're getting up and reacting quickly. They're not being caught flat-footed. They're already anticipating the danger. So let's just do that real quick in this situation right here, right? So let's just roll for the party. We'll use this one here. So we have a 6 and a 5 is 11, plus 5 is 15, and these four baddies, what do they got? A 2 and 2 and 4 and 3 is a 7. So in this situation, the group wins initiative. They've lost initiative. So what happens next? No one can move. No one can shoot. No one can cast spells. No one can flee. They don't get to do anything. They might want to consider alerting their presence when they're further away. This group gets to decide who goes, what they want to do now. What they can do. They can move. They can pull out potions, they can flee, they can close to melee range, they can shoot a weapon, they can throw a dagger, they can attempt to move silently and hide in shadows all in one turn, because I let assassins and thieves say that simultaneously. I want to attempt to hide in shadows and move silently. They don't need to say, I move silently the first round and I hide in shadows the second. It's kind of ridiculous. The caster can get off her first spell without even moving. You can move a little bit and cast or attack, but not very far. It's 1/3 rule. So what could happen? Now, the next problem you have is, well, who gets to go first? Let's say you're playing with you and 5 of your friends are playing. You can do it this way. You can just turn to everyone very quickly and say, well, around the table going clockwise, like or going counterclockwise, like in a poker game or playing 21. Or if you wanted to, you then say, well, whoever has the highest dexterity is going to get to go first. So the order could be determined by whoever's the highest dexterity. And there's no real reason at that point to make people roll against each other in the party, because some people in the party are like, I'm going to let you guys go first because I'm just going to stay here and see what you do first. Like it may be a situation where like, well, I won the initiative and I'm the caster. Let's say for some reason we rolled the dice and Liz Fannin won the initiative. Well, she doesn't really want to go first. She knows she's going to get to go before the bad guy. She says, you guys can go ahead and do your move. I'll go last once I see where you are in your position. I want to cast a spell on maybe this front heroic looking baddie here, but I need you guys to position yourselves first. And y'all know this because you've been traveling together, you've been adventuring together. That's kind of your tactic. That's your basketball team. That's how you work. It's not like the players are allowed to confer for 20 minutes before they make their moves. It's implied that they've already been working together for a long time, weeks, months, years even. So they already kind of have this unbroken kind of Dritz Stewart and Brunor Battlehammer, Wolfgar kind of vibe, Caddy Bree going on. So they already kind of have a sense that that's okay for you to allow them to do that. So let's say in this situation, the monk says that she doesn't want to get pounded first. The monk says, let me go first. I'm going to move off to the flank. So the monk, she has a really high movement rate, right? Let's just show her real quick. Her movement rate's a little bit more than everyone else. Her movement rate's much faster than 12 inches, which as we've talked in our other video, this is going to be 20. So she gets to move 4 squares. She's decided to go 1, 2, 3, 4 over to here. And say the cleric decides I'm going to go second because what I want to do is I want to reposition myself behind enemy lines. And Doris said, well, I'll tell you what, let me take a step forward first. I'm going to charge them. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. But he's not engaged in combat yet. Remember, he gets to move 3 more. 4, 5, 6. Now he can't attack because he used the full length of his movement. So he's now in range to attack this person or this person and also to be attacked by them. He's not in range of this guy, but he's in range of her first. Let's see if we can get you a little closer view of that in a minute. So he's done his movement, and the druid might be like, I want to just move 1 square over to get the pillar to lock the line of sight to me, so that anyone with a crossbow can't shoot me, so the crossbow girl can't shoot me. And the monk's like, oh, I should have thought of that. So he just says, I'm just going to move 1 square and prepare a spell, but I haven't decided what's going to be. And the caster's like, well, I'm in range of being shot by this girl right off the bat, so I actually want to move 1, 2, 3 and hide behind this pillar so I can't be shot. And this guy here, our assassin, he says, you know what, Seamus, what do you want to do? He's like, I'm going to try to move silently and I'm going to hide in shadows. So those are percentage checks. So the DM will say, okay, go. There's a decent amount of torchlight in here. It's going to be really hard for you. I'm not going to take any penalties away because you're not really good at it yet. Your hide in shadows is only 15%, dude. Go for it. Roll a percent, I'll die. Ooh, 0, 0, 0. That's a 100. That's a terrible failure. So he tries to hide in shadows and he tries to move silently, right? His move silently MS is 20%. He doesn't really need to be moving silently in a bar situation. He could have got away with moving normally because of the background noise. He rolls a 36, so he's not moving silently, but he still needs to commit to the movement, which is kind of like a stealthy movement. So he's not going to be moving. He never gets to move the full charge distance like our dwarf Orsta did, right? So Orsta got to move his full distance, which is 30. You see the 15 and 30? The 30, he's not engaged. Now he's in melee range and engaged. He won't be able to disengage and move as far. So he kind of rushed into combat. No one's touching him. He's got his shield up, hatchet in hand. So our little assassin guy, or rogue as I keep calling him, he says, well, here's what I was going to do. I was going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But because he's trying to hide in shadows, I'm going to say, listen, you need to move against the wall first. So you got to go 1, 2, 3, and that's as far as you can go. So you're kind of back in the back away from the shadows, and you're trying to get concealed, but you aren't concealed, but you're trying. Then we have our cleric who's left. She's left out in the open. She's like, oh gosh, I need to support this guy. Like Classic DM's video said, I should go get engaged in melee. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rush forward. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm not going to jump on the table, but I am going to jump on the table so I'm going to be right next to my dwarf buddy so I can help him and heal him. So I'm going to attack her first. He's going to attack her first. Now everyone's moved. So group 1 is done. Then you would turn to group 2. Now remember, there's no attack of opportunity, right? And since group 2 lost the initiative, we now have situations where we have individual initiative and group initiatives happening. So it depends what someone wants to do. Now, if this, let's say of this group here, the DM says, okay, you both moved into melee range of this heroic girl dual wielding two rapiers. She's going to engage in the dwarf who arrived first, and she's going to attack him first. That's fine, no problem there. She doesn't need to roll for initiative, and from that point forward, those two will go attack, 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 attack. They'll keep trading blows. In fact, let me get that camera in a little closer so you can see what that looks like. It'll look cooler to see it up close. Let's see if we can bring this in a little closer here. Yeah, see if we can get it more focused. And let me pull the character sheet out of the way so you don't have that in the way. Okay, here we go. Now we can talk about that in a little bit more detail. You'll be able to see it. So as I said, so our dwarf moved in there to attack this front heroic bad girl, right? Let's get something we can point with. It's not a stupid big dry erase marker. What do we got? Where's a dagger when you need one? I'll just use a pencil. Old school. A crappy Office Depot pencil. So he moved in first to attack her. She would actively defend as he approaches and charges, so she's going to attack him first. The cleric came in second, so she has declared she's going to attack him first. So these guys are now going to go back and forth and back and forth. So she'll attack him, roll to hit, maybe she misses, then he attacks her. Unless either one of them move, they just keep going back and forth and back and forth. Their initiative order stays the same. We don't need to roll initiative again, ever again, for these folks unless there's a change of position. Now, this guy here, what does he want to do? He sees the monk far away. He watched the dwarf charge. The hero, the guard's up next to him. The DM says, I'm going to support my heroic leader here, this female sergeant, and I'm going to attack the dwarf as well. So he only moves one square, and then he can roll his attack. So now he's moved into this group as well. So these two are all back and forth and back and forth. Now there's no clear line of sight from her. I'm not going to move the camera, but there's no real clear line of sight for her to anyone. If you're a Warhammer player, you can't really shoot through the crowd. Right? So she's not really going to be able to shoot through the crowd. She needs to move to a new position. And she doesn't really want to try squeezing past this cleric, and there's only 5-foot opening between the window. So she decides she's going to go 1, 2, and then maybe try to shoot this monk. So she goes 1, 2, and then she can turn and shoot. And that's a good line of sight. She can see the monk, so she can take a shot at the monk. Let me show you the overhead view on that so you can get a sense of what we're talking about. So she wants to take a shot at the monk. So she's done her movement. At the end of her movement, I'll let her do the attack because she's not doing anything ridiculous. So she could roll to attack. And the monk actually gets a chance, if you realize this, to actually make a saving throw and block away normal missiles. It's kind of like Wonder Woman. So that's happened. That would be the next thing you would resolve. And then this caster, because remember, this group gets to go second. Everyone else here over in this group moved. The caster says, I'm going to wind up, let's say, a sleep spell. And so you'd look up the sleep spell and see what the range is, or maybe web or something like that. And she's decided to try to crowd control this whole area. She's seen you all fan out. You guys went first. She thought about what she's going to do. She sees her melee front line protecting the other frontline people. She's decided that, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to cast a web on this entire range here. So from her perspective, she's thinking of casting a web off that way. But she doesn't have a real good line of sight through everything, but she can see enough to like target this pillar. I mean, there's a blocking line of sight here. Let's put the overhead view over here again. So she has to think, well, what can I actually target? Well, I can kind of see the table, so I can see through the crowd and look at the table, because all I have to do is look. It's not a projectile that has to travel through these people. But she may say, I'm going to try to get this web spell. I can't really see the druid. I'm going to anchor it on this spot where everyone was before they dispersed. So she decides to cast a web and land that there. And the DM would lay out where the web is, and everyone would make saving throws, and all this kind of stuff would happen. Then that would be the end of the first round. So what would happen next? So what would happen next? Let's remove this camera just for a minute here so I can erase some stuff. Now you have what's called an individual one-on-one type initiative situation happening if everything changes because of people's positions. So let's say, let me move this, just move her out of the way first. If this erased off of here, I'm just going to remove this all the way. Bear with me, I use a crappy microfiber to get this cleared off. All right, so we had our magic user behind the column, and we had our druid trying to hide behind, he's trying to line of sight behind this, right? She's trying to line of sight behind that, just like playing World of Warcraft in the arena. And we have our dwarf engaging her up in the front line. He's attacking her, and our cleric was right here, and the dwarf was here. All right, so she decided to cast a web, and she sent her to here, and whatever happened with the web spell, we'll just do some random junk on here. And our monk was being shot at over here by this girl, took a shot at her. So now you have this, you return back to the original group's initiative. Who would get to do something next? So in the party, everyone's spread out. These people are not engaged. They can move their full distance to close, move to pull out of range, work around the whole area. Maybe he want to hide in shadows. He may want to try and run and scramble along the wall and run and get involved in a combat. It depends what the players want to do. So in this situation, you kind of have this back and forth group thing where people are engaging and disengaging from combat. Let's just go ahead and play that out a little bit. Let's just take it from the same order we had before. Let's say that our caster decides that she's going to pop out from here and she wants to wind up some kind of a sleep spell or something. Or let's see, what would be a good spell for her to cast? But she only has Charm Person, right? So she's not enough range to cast Charm Person. Maybe she's supposed to stay hidden behind this column for now. Maybe the druid decides to cast Entangle on this area but wants to target so only someone get entangled. So let's say he winds up a spell, cast Entangle. So he's trying to target the entangle spell to entangle just these people in this area and not entangle his friends. Maybe they all get rooted in place. And the monk says, you know what, I'm going to close the gap and engage this guy. So let's see what our monk's movement rate is. We pull our player panel up for our monk. There we go. Where's our monk at? So she can move 20 and 20 and 40. So 40 out of combat. So we can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In fact, what she's going to do is she's going to get right here. So she's going to get right here next to him to attack with this column to block the line of sight so she can bounce behind the column if she needs to. So she's going to run up and attack him in the first round. They're all engaged in melee. There's a web in the area. Let's say that this character is webbed and can't move. Let's say she was webbed and can't move. Maybe these guys save from the web. Maybe then it becomes a turn for our assassin. He goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He moves 30 feet. Maybe he gives up on the hide in shadows. The druid casts a spell. She's holding her action. And then you would continue to do the melee like this back and forth until everything ends up being dead. Now, that's what we call a group initiative. Let's start back over from scratch and give you an example of what I would call a one-on-one initiative that uses your reaction attacking adjustment. Let's clear this off real quick. The dexterity ability for the characters, since we're using 3d6, not using a 1d6 number, is something that would be a scenario where the dwarf is in the front and he was fighting this heroic captain girl, right? Or whatever. I think they're about like this or something, weren't they? And let's actually pull this little camera in closer. Let's get this a little closer so you can see what we're talking about. And we'll just pull this over here. We don't need to have this open anymore for the time being. So he's moving to attack her and she's moving to attack him. And so we have a situation where, let's say our assassin is right here. And let's say that he attacks her and misses, but she decides to change targets and switch to engage this, our little rogue dude here, our little gnome rogue. Now that is a one-on-one fight. So what you would want to do, the way I would handle that would be that the gnome, let's put the lighting so you can see him a little bit better. There you go. The gnome, it's gnome versus her. So let's just say her reaction attack and adjustment is just nothing. She's like, I don't know, 12 dexterity. Well, we would look at Seamus shoveling the embalmer. Let's pull up his character sheet real quick so you can see what that looks like. So okay, what's your reaction attack and adjustment? Well, he only has a 14 dexterity. He doesn't have any. So they would just roll a dueled type of initiative roll. So he would roll 3d6. In his situation, he gets a 4 and a 5 and a 6, which gives you 11. And she would roll hers. 4 and 4 is 8 and 1 is 9. So he would win. He would get to go first. Well, this is what I call an individual initiative. Once that's established, they go back and forth until a new enemy enters the fray, until he disengages or something like that. Let's say, for example, in the next round, some assassin guy tries to run up and hit him from behind. So when that person engages into melee range, which is this area around him, it's almost like a checkerboard if you think about it. There is a proximity around every character that's like a 9-grid square, like a tic-tac-toe square, that you are in range to hit someone. So for our little assassin guy who's standing here, even though he's a little gnome, we don't give him a penalty. This box around him is his area of influence, okay? Anyone that enters this box that's new target that he hasn't had initiative with previously, even though he hasn't had his turn yet, is going to be a one-on-one initiative roll. So he's aware that this person's moved into range to get ready to attack him. So they would roll initiative against each other. And then from that point forward, there would be initiative back and forth, like a little battle back and forth between him versus her and her versus him to determine the order. He might even change his position to give him more favorable position where these two have to fight him and he can have frontal face protection. Because if you ever look at the Dungeon Master's Guide, you see there's rules on page 69 about flanking position. If you look down here, whether it's turned at an angle or you're using a hex grid or whatever, there's a front, a front flank, a defender, and a front flank. So in this situation that we have right here, let's zoom in and give you a better view of it, okay? With our little assassin boy. Let's get this where you can see it. You know what we're going to need to turn? I'm going to turn that panel off so I don't have to keep recentering this camera. There we go. So here's our assassin dude. This grid around him is his area. These are front flanks. If our dwarf fighter was fighting here, they're front flanks. If he was fighting this guy, let's move the dwarf out of here, and she was attacking him from behind, she's able to hit him from behind. That's considered his rear flank. That's why we like to use miniatures. This is a huge debate between me and the Pathfinder 2 community. They don't like to use that. I like to use it. The basic rules are in here. The thing they have in AD&D that's kind of weird is they don't allow you to choose your target, but I do. So in this situation, this is a facing direction thing. She's able to hit him from behind. He gets reduced. His defensive adjustment from his armor class is no longer there. So in this situation, his dexterity is only 14, doesn't have a defensive adjustment. But if you look here, if he had had 17 dexterity, his armor class would have been dropped down by 3. That means that if he was a 17 dexterity guy, like, let's take a look at the dwarf. Let's swap him out for the dwarf. The dwarf has a high dexterity, right? His armor class with his shield and splint mail and his defensive adjustment, which he has 17 dexterity. And then you pull it up so you can actually see it because you can't see it yet from there. Sorry about that. If you pull him up, you see his armor class is 0. So she would be rolling to hit 0, but we take the shield away, which drops 1, and we take 2 more away, so for a total of 3. So his armor class goes to 3 because he's being attacked from behind now, if that makes any sense. In fact, let me just change this over a little bit like this. You can still see why I have the panel open, okay? So she's attacking him from behind, so basically his armor class gets debuffed in a way temporarily. She's not getting him flat-footed. There's no sneak attack roll. There's no special trace rule like in Pathfinder to trace through another enemy. All that stuff's malarkey. So instead, now he still gets to fight and defend, but his armor and his body movement, he's trying to shrug the blows like a Philly shell as a boxer. He'll do the best he can to defend himself without actively defending against her. He can't flip back and forth and be full armor class against her and then flip back and forth and be full armor class against him. That's just ridiculous. That doesn't happen in any kind of combat scenario. Everyone wants to attack someone from behind. That's why it's there in the first place. So in this situation, say that he rolled initiative. In fact, let's just do it right now. Let's do his initiative roll against this guy who just moved into his realm of his, he just approached into his realm of sphere of influence. So this is the initiative roll for our guy, right? And he's got +2 to his, so 6 and 6 is 12, plus 2 more is 14. So he rolls a 16. This scrub with a little short sword is going to go 4 and 1. That's 5 and 2. So he only rolls, his roll is only what? Like useless. 4 and 2 and 1, 7. So he gets to go first. So he starts attacking this guy. He attacks him, then he attacks back. Maybe he even damaged the guy and the guy's down to 1 hit point. Then she gets her turn and she goes, I'm going to move into range to attack him. The moment she gets within this sphere of influence is when he's allowed to decide to actively defend and engage her and turn his back to someone he just attacked, but they still need to do an initiative roll against each other. So this is where you take his initiative roll and compare it to hers. Let's just take a look at the overhead view of that real quick. So this would be his initiative roll against hers. Say she has a +1 bonus, right? His is a 6 and a 5. Actually, a 5 and 5 and 6 is 16. He's got +2 to that. He would have an 18 initiative, hard number to beat. Let's say she had +2 as well. 5 and 5 is 10 and 1. That would only give her 11 plus 2 is 13. She still would lose. So the moment she moved into his sphere of influence, he still gets to take a whack at her first. That's the thing about the initiative rules that I like to use. I think it make a little bit more tactical sense. Here's an example. You guys know I always make reference to Conor McGregor, right? I like UFC fighters. I like strikers. I like lots of fighters. Some fighters I like better than others. Do you remember the Khabib Nurmagomedov fight against Conor McGregor, where after the fight there's this nasty, crazy melee, right, where some of Khabib's buddies climbed the cage and ran around the mayhem going on after Khabib had jumped out of the cage at Dylan Dennis and all that foolishness. And there's one moment where Zabib, or whatever his name is, runs up and takes a right, tries to do a right hook on Conor, and Conor hits him with a straight left. So in that situation, Conor actually struck the other guy first in the face before he could get in range. It's the same thing with the Jose Aldo fight. Jose took an overhand right, faked left, faked to right, did an overhand left, I think it was, and Conor got his left hand to land before Jose's left hand hit. So Conor won the initiative in that role. Now they're both striking at the same time. That's what we have here. We have Conor McGregor versus Jose Aldo, or Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz. So the person that's faster and quicker and better at reading the combat, that's what the dexterity reaction attack and adjustment is used for. It's used for these split-second moments where do you get your shot off first or not? And when someone enters into range of you and you're an experienced fighter, you're aware of this, unless someone's popping out of the shadows. So let's say, for example, that let's turn this around with bad guy protection. Let's say that there is a bad girl casting a spell, and we got our dwarf fighter trying to wail on her one-on-one. And this guy's hidden in shadows and moving silently, and he goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and then backstabs her, right? Because he's coming out of shadows, she doesn't even see him. She doesn't even get to roll initiative or anything. But once he struck her, she's aware of his presence. So if he doesn't kill her right off the bat, she actually gets to have an initiative roll in her next turn. So let's say that she wipes him out and kills him. Poor dude, he's dead. He backstabs her, takes her down to 1 hit point, right? She got 1 hit point left. Now it's her turn. She can turn around and, cast Finger of Death on him or something like that, so she can get off quite quickly. Let's just see what would happen if that were to be the case. Let's pull up Seamus's character sheet. He doesn't have any bonus. Let's say she doesn't have any bonus. So Seamus, we're going to roll 3d6 for him, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 3d6 for her. 2 and 6 is also an 8. Plus 1 is 9, so it's a tie. So in this situation, if it'd be a tie. He gets to swing at her again with both his little weapons at the same time she casts a spell. So she can cast a really fast spell, like she tries to cast a 3-segment spell. I'm going to allow him to get the swing off faster. And he was using a real heavy weapon, it would make it slower. That's where as a DM, you kind of need to say, well, you're using a halberd versus her casting an instantaneous 1-segment spell. It's really quick for her. Because remember, our time is all compressed as it was from before. So this is basically how we do this type of situation for me. You have to take into consideration the sphere of influence of someone who's entering and exiting the sphere of influence. That's when you use these individual initiative rolls, okay? So rather than doing just a general initiative roll for everyone under the sun, you use these specific rolls for group situations versus individual situations where I'm striking you and you're striking me. Who gets the shot off first? Let's take a look at our summary board here, okay? I got this pre-written up for you. So, initiative and surprise. We didn't talk a lot about surprise. We'll just kill this panel for you. I don't need to see that anymore. So, how does it work? So, initiative and surprise. So, you really have a group or individual. So, as you remember just a moment ago, when we had the 2 groups coming in the end of the welcome winch, so that's a group initiative. It's just 3d6. Highest number wins. That group that wins as a group gets to move first. And it depends on whether they're engaged or free movement. No one's in range, no one's too close. When do you apply the reaction attacking adjustment? Only when there's individual initiative happening where someone's entering and exiting the sphere of influence. So who gets to go first? You could roll as a group. It kind of depends how the players want to decide it. The DM might say whoever has the highest dexterity gets to go first. There's no real reason to say the highest reaction attacking adjustment because less people are going to have that. Let me give you a specific example of that right now. Let's say our party won. And the DM said, not me, he said, whoever has the highest reaction attacks and adjustment gets to go first. Okay, his is 2, hers is nothing, his is nothing, hers is 3, so the monk would go first, and then the dwarf. His is nothing, and hers is nothing. So all that would really give you out of 6 characters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, is an answer, about 2 of them, that he would go second and she would go first. You're better off saying, let's do a dexterity. Which is the highest dexterity? Well, we have 17 dexterity, 10 dexterity, 14 dexterity, 18 dexterity, 12 dexterity, and 13 dexterity. So you could do it that way. You could say whoever has the highest dexterity gets to go move or attack and go first. It makes sense. Your character's ability to move and control their body is basically a dexterity thing. It says right here, dexterity encompasses a number of physical attributes, including hand-eye coordination, agility, reflexes, precision, balance, and speed of movement. Right here. So use the ability score to help you determine what happens in what order. And if you have ties, you can roll. There's no reason for you to roll against your teammates and your party to determine who gets to go first. All right, so that answers this question. Who goes first, right? So that means you can move, you can cast, you can shoot, you can take your full movement, then attack if you're in range, take your full movement, then cast a spell. You can do all that, right? There's no like partial movement and then partial spell or something carrying over to the next round. Now, surprise is something we didn't talk about. Here's how I like to deal with the surprise thing. Surprise is really a situation of line of sight and awareness and stealth. So by this, what do I mean? I mean, let's go back to our example here with our board. If our party hanging out, having a beer, chilling after adventure, where is everybody? Here they all are. They're over here on this side. They're all chilling out, hanging out. We can put the camera on him, put them on close again, right? What do we got? Who's all here doing what? All right, here we are. Here's the group. Been a long day adventuring. We just came back from the moat house. Whatever's going on, they're hanging out. And this rogue, well, you can even say that's how Vrinjar. It says Vrinjar from our other story decided to move silently and hide in shadows. His goal is to assassinate the cleric, right? It's something about St. Cuthbert that he's not a big fan of. He's a bad guy from the Temple Elemental Evil. He's an assassin, a level 3 assassin. His goal has been to get into the inn, case the inn at night. He goes in the front door. He's already moving silently, hidden in shadows. He slips in the door by the cloaks. He eyeballs her. The DM doesn't even put this mini on the board, right? He doesn't even put him on the board. And the overhead view, I show you what that looks like, right? You got this guy here hidden in shadows, stealthing in. His goal is to go sneak around behind her and kill her. So the DM's going to be like, okay, he's going to try to backstab and kill her. So he's going to have to sneak all the way around. We can do the overhead view here real quick. His goal is to move all the way around the whole area. Maybe the fireplace is burning. He's got to stay in the shadows and try to work his way casually over here. Maybe engages in a conversation with some people sitting at the table. Try to play it nonchalant. The DM would have to say if he's doing it that way that, you know, a couple people walk into the inn, they sit down and order a beer. If the players aren't really paying attention on their guard, it's okay for the DM to have characters moving around in the background, kind of like you would if you ever played Baldur's Gate. You see characters moving around, things like that. You're like, oh, when a party of people come in the inn, they kind of look around, look at you casually. You don't really notice. This one guy comes in, he waves to a friend, he starts moving over through the bar, through the crowd to get to his friend. They start talking quietly. The DM might tip you off to say that, like, because you're here playing the assassin, right? You might say the DM might be something nice where he says, well, you know, you guys are hanging out at the table talking, but since you're a really, really smart and alert assassin, you kind of notice that these dudes over here are talking about you and pointing at you kind of furtively. And that might tip off the player to go do something about it. But let's say none of that happened, right? And this guy was able to hide in shadows and get himself all the way up to here, behind this column, to get right here and try to backstab her. Boom. That would be a one-on-one initiative situation of him trying to attack her. Because he's hidden in shadows and moving silently and assuming all the lamps were burned out, but maybe just a candle on the table, he's actually coming out of the darkness. He would get to attack first no matter what. Now, what I wouldn't mind doing is after he starts the attack, right, you could do an initiative roll, but it's not fair because it took a lot of time and energy for that assassin to get in that pace. And he's going to do double damage if he's up to like level 4 or something. He could flat out kill her. Now, as a DM, you don't want that to happen to your players. What you want to do is have your other assassin kind of be able to see that the assassin gets a chance to detect that he's moving in shadows because he knows what it looks like. He sees the guy's got his weapon ready. You know, is someone else of high intelligence able to see her out of the corner of her eye? Does the druid with the wisdom be able to see? Does the dwarf fighter who has a lot of physical fighting prowess able to detect hidden shadows? There's not a lot of rules for detecting someone in shadows like in World of Warcraft or ESO where everyone can crouch and stealth. So you need to kind of make up your own rule for that. But technically, if you do it by the book, like I'm saying now, he get the free backstab off on her. It could even kill her. So that's really nasty. So anyway, in summary, that's how we handle the surprise situations. In that scenario, he would be surprising her, and then everyone else, the whole table, would be like, whoa, what happened? And then you would have an initiative roll where the individual people in the party all roll for initiative to see who goes in what order against this one enemy. It wouldn't be a group versus group initiative roll anymore. But that's basically how we handle the initiative and surprise. I hope this video has been helpful for you. If you have any questions or comments on how I do these house rules, they're all designed to make the game run faster and be quicker. It's not to remove the spirit of the game. It's just to make it work faster in a modern day. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.